Welcome to Rags to Riches, the Ironman gear progression tailored specifically to completing the Chambers of Xerics challenge mode raid solo. From the scuffed early game Ironman gear to the endgame best in slot items, we will be recreating our gear progression by changing and upgrading gear between each raid that we complete. You don't need a twisted bow to begin doing challenge mode raids, but it certainly is a lot more fun when you do have one. With this gear setup, we are now roughly in the beginning of 2024. In fact, this new Torva helm that we're wearing now, I pulled on January 1st of 2024. We were officially in our next grind era. Honestly, we maybe started doing next a little too early. Back then, we were doing it in pretty scuffed gear. I didn't have Missouri available from TOA, and I didn't even have an armadillo crossbow, which was pretty essential if you didn't have a twisted bow at next. And honestly, I think most Ironmen don't even go to next until they are in absolute max gear. But you know what? I ended up pulling a Torva helm, very worth it. And you know what? If there's one item from next that you would want to get first, a Torva helm is probably the most ideal. But yeah, nevertheless, that is the new thing we are bringing into the raids now at solo CMs, and we're consistently bringing the buckler. In the previous episode, I said that I did start bringing the buckler, but I think during this stage, I started consistently bringing it. Anyways, enough yapping, let's start the raid. Still no ring switch, unfortunately. We have been camping the light bear the entire time during this era. But yeah, let's pot up. I also, unsure whether or not I was using divine pots in this era, but we're going to go ahead and use divines anyways. Divines are very, very worth using. Okay, we have pre-potted. I could actually pre-pot an imbued heart, although I don't think that makes too much of a difference. But I mean, you know what? That was something I didn't have back then. All right, here we go. I guess while we get started on Tecton here, if this is the first video you might be watching and you're thinking, hey, you're supposed to be recreating what you wore back then, but you're wearing some things that quite simply didn't exist back then. Well, I guess I will clarify. I suppose the most notable thing is the Avernic treads. Back then, I would be wearing the primordial boots, but unfortunately being on an Ironman, I don't have the primordial boots anymore. So I'm wearing the regular Avernics. Oh, actually that's a mistake. I'm wearing the Avernic Treads Max here, which are significantly better, I will admit. They are tri-bit boots now. But yeah, we're just trying to recreate the setup as best as we can, but unfortunately we just don't have primordial boots. But we most definitely weren't wearing dragon boots back then. Another thing is I am wearing the Blood Moon Tassets. Those didn't exist back then either. But I was wearing Bandos Tassets, which I do believe offensive stats-wise, they are the same. And in fact, I am putting myself at a slight disadvantage here wearing Blood Moon as they have less defense. And there's some slight differences, obviously. I didn't have Blood Torva, but I did have this Torva helmet. But that's just a aesthetic, a cosmetic. Anyways, we landed both hammers here at Tecton. So DPS is actually really good here right now. Couple more hits and we should be done with Tecton. I will say, though, I'm actually a big fan of this look I have right now. Oh, also, I probably didn't have the Osmuntum's Fang kit either. But, again, cosmetic. Alright, with Tecton being down, let's sip our Anti-Venom. Let's sip the Overload, the Enhance. And as our HP ticks down, we're going to eat this shark as well. We are going to pick up the Refit and sip it a few times. And we'll go ahead and drop that back on the floor to make room. On the crab room. So that Tecton ended up taking over 2 minutes, which I would like to say that was probably pretty standard at the time. If I got a sub 2-minute Tecton, it was probably some absolute nuclear RNG. But 2-minute Tectons were probably the standard at the time, especially since the first hammer was never guaranteed. Up until some quality of life changes down the road. Crab room, nice and simple. This is just the standard solo method, where you work on the mage first, or actually, correction, you work on the range first, right on entry, then the mage, then the nothing, and lastly, the melee crystal. That is the crab room completed. Heading to Ice Demon, walking past the scabs. We are going to be scabbing. Let us swap into my Osmumtum's Fang here. We're going to drop the overload in hands next to the tinderbox so that we can create some room to actually pick up our supplies. Okay, unfortunately this scav spawned in absolute Narnia. That does happen when you finish off the scav, but then you end up by the kindlings over there, or the saplings over there. Obviously the scavenger can't spawn over there, so it'll kind of reset its spawn. But in general, it tries to actually spawn around your player. Okay, we have 6 planks, 12 juice, 12 mushrooms. We do want a little bit more juice. 1 more, in fact, precisely. Scabbing is also, on average, a lot quicker these days. I don't know the exact details, but the drops do, well, drop a lot more commonly than they did in the past. I remember back in the day, sometimes I would just get incredibly bad RNG, and it would take like 5 minutes of scabbing just to get what I needed. These days, we actually are a little bit unlucky right now, but we probably haven't even been here for a minute yet. There we go. We got enough juice and mushrooms, and we actually ended up with 8 planks, so we're going to be making the best and largest possible chest. So let's go ahead and build that. And then we're going to go ahead and chuck the juice and the mushrooms in shared. We're going to equip our hammer because we're going to be speccing Ice Demon. Once we do that, we deposit everything else in the private. Come out here to pick up our axe. And make our way, while we chop, back to our potions and the tinderbox here. Not much to it. We're going to get 28 kindling. They weren't stackable back then, but they are now. 28 kindling, light a brazier, and then we're going to get another 28, light another brazier. There we go, 28. And then after we light the second one, this little window of time here, we're just going to chop as many as we can until the percentage bar there goes to about roughly 35%. Then we're going to deposit and spend the remaining time we have gearing up to fight Ice Demon and then Shamans as well. So there we go, 35, 37% roughly. We're going to put it into any of the 2 existing lit braziers. We're going to go ahead and drop our axe and tinderbox. I'm going to temporarily chuck the overload and enhance in shared because we want to make room to keep our inventory organized here. Withdraw everything out of private, then deposit the things that you don't need, which is actually most things. You just need your range gear, your fang, your pots, and the gear you already had on you. So unfortunately, we missed both hammer specs here. But it is what it is. Nothing we can do. We're going to go ahead and overload and enhance as those things just ran out. And right now we're just doing a bang melee method on Ice Demon. Unfortunately, very click intensive, but I do believe this was better DPS than using the Bofa. Halfway through the KC now here at Ice Demon, and I neglected to summon Thrall, so I'll go ahead and do that now. Better late than never, I suppose. Although, you can see that the Thrall's not even doing any damage. Jeez, okay, I hit a 1 there. So the big upgrade in this raid is obviously the Torva helmet, which is actually absolutely massive because not only does it give us max hits for our melee setup, but it's also much, much more tanky. That is Ice Demon completed. And because our prayer situation is a little bit low here, I am going to make more of an effort to try and get these shamans into these safe spots. That way I don't have to have my overhead on. Unfortunately, it's not very cooperative right now, the shamans. Let's try again. Although usually... There we go. Usually you kind of just try once or twice in the beginning, and if it doesn't, you just kind of run it out, because if you don't, you end up wasting more time than it's worth. But I guess more specifically to our situation right now with our low prayer, we're gonna click rigor here and keep protect range off while we can. Alright, that's the first shaman completed. Or finished off. The shaman's chilling all the way on the other side. Let's also try to get it over here. I know you want to jump. We're going to pick up the butcher since we're literally standing on top of it. Okay, not cooperative. Doesn't feel like jumping. Well, let's just hope we can do enough damage for our Bofa here. Oh, that's what you like to see, a max hit. Very nice. Another one. Into a 0 though, so you know, it's always going to even out. Alright, that should be it. We already have the Buchu, which is all we need. We already have an overload and enhance in our inventory. And once we finish Vanguards, we'll get a fresh new set of potions as well. So I have gone through this prep process in every raid that I've done so far. And I'll continue to be doing this unless one day I go for a speedrun time and well, not the time specifically, I already have the Grandmaster time, but just a personal speedrun record. I may have to do some no prepping, but for right now, this is what we're going to be doing every time. So we're going to get the spade and get 13 juice, 8 mushrooms out. We're going to pick lots from the vial filler or the gore tree here. Drop 4 and then fill the rest of the vials up. This is going to be exactly 21 vials. And we have 13 juice, 8 mushrooms. You do the math right there. Okay, once all the vials are filled with water, I'm going to deposit 10. I actually have that. Left click donate 10 into the shared storage. So we're going to be picking up 8 Buchus here. 5, 6, 7, and 1 more. We'll go ahead and clean those and make our 8 revitalizations. Once those are done, chuck them in shared. We got the 10 vials we previously deposited. We'll take those out. So now we have 13 vials in an inventory, and we have 13 spaces for the Buchus. And we have 13 juice, obviously. We're going to fill our inventory up with Buchu. In this exact setup, you don't even have to count how many Buchus you need, right? You just know once your inventory is full, you have the exact number. So as we make our way to the next room, we're also going to be making these brews. Just to be a little bit more efficient. Still got a couple more brews to make, so we'll just stand here, make those. Once we're done with that, chuck the spade and all the brews in shared. Go to private, withdraw all, and you know what? I made this same exact mistake on the last raid, actually. Withdrawing all with this particular inventory that I have is actually not ideal. As you can see, everything is in weird places, but there we go. The most importantly, you need your max mage gear, your max melee gear, your spec weapon, rune pouch, and thralls. And then take out overload, enhance. 1 revet and 2 brews should get you through vanguards. We're gonna go open up looking for the melee here by maging it. That's because our mage setup is actually the worst DPS, which is a little bit ironic considering that we actually have Ancestral. But yeah, the Trident, not exactly does the most damage. In fact, it very much has the lowest max hit out of our 3 setups here. Alright, we're gonna go work on the range vanguard. I do have claws. These days, I bring the ZCB, but back then, as soon as I got the claws available to me, that's what we were working with. Alright, I was not paying close enough attention, and unfortunately, reset the vanguards. This won't be too costly, but it was a point of frustration whenever this happened, and still is a point of frustration, honestly. I mean, you never want to reset vanguards. And honestly, in this setup, vanguards will take long as is, so when accidentally resetting them, let's just say not ideal. But it shouldn't affect our capability to finish this raid in any manner. We have all the supplies we need, all the gear we need. It's just going to cost us a little bit extra time, unfortunately. I suppose for reference right now, we are 15.5 minutes into the raid. Typically, in the max setup I have available to me now, I'd probably be working on Vespula, and if I was very speedy, I'd probably be at Tightrope already. Oh, you know what? Okay, no, we're fine. For a second there, I misread the number on the major, and I thought we were in danger of resetting again, in which that would be very, very bad. Taking a bit of damage here, so let's go ahead and brew. Even though it's the most painful for your points in terms of how much you lose, dying at home, I actually find that less painful. And I'm kind of like more accepting of it when I do die at home over silly, silly mistakes in the regular rooms. Because, in my opinion, you really shouldn't be dying in the regular rooms. Or the raid in general, but you know, if it does happen. This Vanguard's room has taken an eternity, and I also forgot to summon my thralls. We're gonna do that now. Better late than never. But yes, this has been a rough Vanguard's room. But you know what? That's just how it plays out sometimes. Alright, Thrall, I need you to finish that. Of course it doesn't. Quite frustrating, honestly. We got probably our 4th claw spec back now, thanks to Camping Lightbearer. Bringing a ring switch probably would have been one of the first things I would do if I could do over the grind again. That would have definitely sped things up. I did eventually bring a ring switch, but evidently in January 2024, I was not doing this yet. No, it digs once again. When it's just one shot away. There we go. 18 minutes into the raid, we finally finish Vanguards. Let's make sure we pick up everything we need. Basically, we keep an overload and enhance on us, and then pick up all the brews and revits. So just like the kindling, grubs here used to be non-stackable, so you had to make the effort of going to the chest first, clearing out your inventory, and then picking up the grubs. But these days, you can pick up grubs as long as you have one inventory space and work your way further into the room. So right here, I'm going to do a little bit of inventory management here. I'm going to switch into my melee gear first, then range. That's just to keep the mage gear at the bottom so that I can bank, because I won't be needing that anymore. We're going to be moving everything else, all the utility, near the bottom. That includes the pickaxe, the salve, and a stamina. Now we still have some more grubs to pick, another 13. I'm probably going to have to pick a little bit more there, actually, because I did take quite some time to sort out my inventory. So while the number says 13 to go right now, it might end up asking for a little bit more. Ideally, you want to keep the scavenger constantly feeding, so that downtime when it was doing nothing is a bit of a time waste. Not very important, obviously, but just a little note, I suppose. All right, we have enough. We're going to go into shared now. We're going to take out the overload and enhance. We're going to take out mostly restores here, and then maybe a brew or two for emergency purposes. We're going to make sure we're overloaded, and I'm actually going to sip a brew dose here, just so our redemption doesn't instantly proc once we enter. And we're going to start doing Vespula. Vespula was a pain point for me, because obviously doing Vespula with the Bofa setup, as you can see right now, is not the quickest. Our DPS is okay, but Vespula usually takes more than 2 minutes with the setup. And not only that, but it absolutely eats up your crystal charges. But this was a conscious decision to do solo CMs for me, as I preferred the consistency of these raids over the many variations and more supply usage, ironically enough, in the regular Chambers runs. Surely in a couple more hits here. Almost done. You can see here that it definitely eats up a lot of our restores, but we made sure to keep some in our storage, and we're definitely not going to be using all our restores. Otherwise, that is an issue. We're done with Vespula. In the past, Vespula actually did not offer up an overload, but it does these days. Making our way to Tightrope next, we're going to heal up and restore our prayer as we go. And then we're going to fill up our inventory with a lot of brews. and then just do tightrope the good old-fashioned way for all the points. Get our thrall going as well. Eat on our 15s here. Keep ourselves nice and healthy. The majors usually won't do too much damage to you, although sometimes they can line up a few hits on you. But it's the rangers that you really have to worry about. But the rangers, they hit so hard that you do want to make the effort of switching into some tankier gear as they are shooting their bow and arrow at you. I am going to step back here because I think I'm not exactly timed up and lined up with it at this moment, but here we go. Oh, and that is a mistake. You never want to tag two of them at once. It's actually real scary at the moment, but I just need to finish the one. Okay, there we go. So that was a mistake there, a misclick. You never want to get into that situation. It gets real scary. But you know what? In the event that you do misclick and you aggro both, it's best to actually just run, go backwards and run out of the room to reset the aggro. We are very brewed down here, but what we're doing is we're just brewing. You know what? It's a pretty terrible situation right here. No, so we're just gonna restore. Step back. We're currently safe. They can't see us. But yeah, these rangers were very, very mean. So let's just reset, and one more hit should do the trick. Very nice. But it did have to smack us on the way out as well. Yeah, sometimes those rangers are just very, very rude. And the more you brew, the less damage you're going to do, right? Because your stats are being drained. So sometimes it's just best to step back, brew a few times, restore your stats, and then give yourself a better chance right there. We did end up burning an absolute ton of brews there, but we should have enough. And we're going to actually get 3 more brews on our way to Ulm from Vasa and Muddadal. 31 health is actually a little bit sketchy for Guardians. I mean, in general, you're not going to take damage from Guardians, but you might get the occasional melee hit, and I think it can hit you for 31, so we went ahead and sipped the Brew Dust there. And then let's just work on Guardians. Run back 1 tile, step forward 1, wait a tick, and then hit. Rinse and repeat. This is a stamina saving method to do in Guardians. Uses much less stamina than simply running back and running back in. To this day, the Dragon Pickaxe is still the best in slot here. It's the mining levels and your strength levels that are very important. The Crystal Pickaxe, all it does is just require less weight, or it's a lighter weapon than the Dragon Pickaxe. But with the stamina changes, that doesn't even really matter either. You know, if you find yourself with a 3rd H pickaxe, I suppose you could bring it just to flex on people. So we're at 27 minutes and we're about to make our way into Vasa. I would say that this is pretty good time. Probably a quick time for back then. Of course, the raid is naturally going to be sped up just due to the game changes and raid changes they've made over the years. For example, as we enter Vasa here, Vasa actually has much less defense than it used to. So using a Bofa now is stronger than using a Bofa back then. There is a Vasa teleport skip method. You can see I actually have a tile labeled, but we definitely didn't do that back then. And it wasn't a known method either, actually. We do have our Dragon Claws. These days we use a ZCB, which we would open up with on Vasa. But for the Dragon Claws, we're going to be using them on the Crystal. Unfortunately, it didn't even do that much damage, so we're going to have to stab this bad boy a few times. And rip our switches back into the range gear. I'd say in the past, if a Vasa wasn't at least 2 teleports, we were just incredibly lucky on our hits. It was pretty much the standard to get teleported at least twice. Also, I'm sure you've noticed throughout the raid, but we've been using an Inferno Cape, in which I did achieve, but quite simply, Varlamore didn't exist yet. And even if it did, I just wasn't at the stage to where I could get the quiver yet. I didn't go for the quiver on this account until I had a scythe. And, well, I didn't have a scythe yet. But yeah, I'm unsure of the exact timeline, but I imagine sometime in early 2024, Varlamore did not exist yet. Alright, that is Vasa down. Drops an Overload and 2 brews, in which we will take. We're going to make our way over to Mystics, and while we do, we're going to equip our Salve, as well as heal up and restore our Prayer. Enhance ran out, and the Overload's going to run out in a couple of seconds here. Make sure it hit on our 15, so that's the first Mystic down. Let's see if we can sneak this one over to this corner over here without that green one on the far side seeing us. Oh? If it comes any closer, if it takes another step, it will most definitely see us. But right now, we're good. In fact, now it's walking away. So our overload timing here is actually pretty good. We have 4 whole minutes on the overload, which should carry us through not only this room, but Mudadao. It's honestly best to avoid having to overload in the middle of the Mudadao room, because, heck, the boss, the Mamadao, and the Baby Dao itself will do a number on you. Never mind self-inflicting 50 damage to yourself. Working on the last Mystic here. We do bring a Salve amulet. It wasn't until we had Max Mage with the Shadow that we started dropping the Salve, just due to inventory space reasons. If you don't have a Salve, Max Mage is better than Max Range. Okay, at this point we have just over 3 minutes left on our overload, but that should be fine. We're gonna go for the Tendril skip here. Saves us a tick or something like that. Fantastic. We get chomped for 20 though. When we do the Tendril skip, we should be praying melee, I think. We're gonna be chopping the tree here. These days, we do have the luxury of having the bronze axe in the room, so you don't need to keep it on you throughout the raid or in your chest or anything like that. You can just get rid of it after Ice Demon, and then you don't have to worry about it. I actually still have my Salve Amulet on right now, so let's go ahead and equip the Anguish instead. And as soon as we're done chopping the tree, we're going to rip our switches into melee, Dragon Claw spec it twice, as well as summon our Thrall. And then we're going to finish it off with the Fang. We hit a max claw there, I believe, so that's pretty sick. Prayer's a little low, so let's super restore. That is the baby Dao done with. Let's get into position for the Mama Dao, which these days is a little bit more humble, although it can still hit like a truck. Exhibit a 32 through prey. However, you can predict the attacks a little bit more. So if it ends up maging us, it will mage us at least 2 more times. Although I don't know if it's going to do that on this particular instance. In fact, it is rapid fire shooting range attacks at us right now. 30 damage at a time. So we're just going to be brewing restore to get our stats back up. That actually lined up very well with our overload. Perfect. Okay. It may have hit us all for a lot of damage there, but we hit back just as hard, if not harder. That is Mother Dao complete. Let's switch into our melee gear here. And the first thing I'm thinking of personally here is that we need to bank this Fang as soon as possible. In the previous run, we made the mistake of bringing the Fang into the Ohm fight with us. That was an wasted inventory space as we don't use the Fang at all. Ultimately, it didn't cost us, but it did make things a little bit more rough. All right, first things first, we're going to drop an overload and an saying all the wrong things here. Brew and restore. We're going to bank the overload and enhance. In fact, we're going to bank everything here. First things first, equip the Dragon Warhammer, put away the Fang. We're not making the same mistake twice. At the top of our inventory, we're going to want our max mage setup, and then followed by our range setup with the Dragon Hunter crossbow and the buckler. Instead of the Bofa, we're not going to be bringing the Bofa in. We're going to bring out both staminas. Rune Pouch, obviously. Dragon Lance, obviously. And then, now the potions. We're going to want at least 5 brews, in which, there we go. Everything lines up. Now we're good to go. We're essentially pre-potting here. That's why we dropped those potions. Pick those back up. And in we go. First hammer lands. Very nice. I'm actually very surprised that the hand did not, like, tense up there. So actually, we'll send another hammer spec, but in doing so we fell out of cycle there. We're gonna tank a few hits here. But okay, now we are in cycle. We can turn off our overheads as the mage running method with a 4-tick weapon is 3-0, so you get 3 hits every cycle while taking absolutely 0 damage. Except for when that happens and the head doesn't turn to the left. Instead, it turns to the middle. A little bit unlucky there, as, you know, we have the Thrall for this reason right here. To ensure that it hits the hand all the time, even when we splash, so that the hand actually turns. But sometimes you do get a little unlucky, and I guess the Thrall doesn't hit and you don't hit at the same time, and that's what happens. I will say, full disclosure, I haven't used this setup, or even any similar setup of any kind, in a long time. And certainly I haven't done the 4-to-1 method and the 3-to-0 method for Ohm in a long time. As these days, I do the shadow running method and a 3-to-1 scythe method. So even though this is content that I've done many, many times over, and I have done these strategies many, many times over, it's been quite some time. So I'm almost relearning in a sense. But here we go. We seem to be in the 4-to-1 cycle without much issue this time around compared to the previous raid. We are taking a bit of damage here, and we're actually not fully potted right now. Our stats are drained. The Torva helmet should help us do more damage and also tank the range hits a bit more. The 2 staminas is honestly overkill. We probably could have just pre-potted a stamina dose and then brought a 4-doser in, and we would have stamina to spare. But back then, prior to the stamina changes, we most definitely had to bring 2 staminas into the Olm fight. Speaking of stamina, we're going to sip a stamina dose right now and get into the 3-to-0 cycle. We are also running the Mage Hand in a manner where we do save as much run energy as we can. You can see here that I run 1 tile, then proceed to walk 2, get the 2nd hit in, and then walk to the 3rd hit. This was definitely very, very important to do back in the day. Less so today with the run energy changes. Again, I don't know what my max mage hit in this setup is. It's got to be in the mid 40s, maybe slightly higher than that. But for reference, as of right now of this recording, max mage, including the ring, the mage's ring, is a 75. So almost twice the damage, honestly. Few more hits on the mage hand. That should do the trick. We're gonna rip our switches into the melee. Didn't have our Torva helm on, unfortunate, but we ended up hitting the hammer anyways. Let's get the melee thrall as well. We smited ourselves with that thrall. So not only did the crystal come out of the ground, but it also auto-attacked us twice. So what we're gonna do here is 1-0 one time. Then 3-1 once. And if I'm not mistaken, we should be in cycle now. Oh, our max hit of a 56, I see. Okay. I thought I would lagged behind there and burned it, and like just made a mistake. But I didn't. But in thinking I did, I actually fell out of cycle, ironically enough. So whenever you make a mistake and you fall out of cycle, I would say that the most important thing for you to do is to keep the head turning. And then just work your way back into cycle. Alright, so that is the melee hand down and phase 2 complete. Let's re-equip our hammer and get ready for P3. Open up with the hammer spec. It lands a huge 60 as well, so that's a feels good. We are going to start with the mage hand first, and my logic for this is that during this time we let our spec energy regenerate. As you can see now, we are now at 50 spec, and you know, if for some reason we take a long time on the mage hand, we could end up with 100 spec as well. But we'll most definitely get another spec, and that gives us the opportunity to land 2 hammers on the melee hand. That was a little scary there, but we recovered. This is P3, so we have to make sure we don't fully finish off the hand. We'll just get as low as possible. This is a situation where it would help to know my exact max hit. Oh, we just found out it is a 48. Okay. So right now it's at a 49, so I can very confidently just hit it another time, no matter what it ends up being. Now, we off it. As an extra precaution, we also summoned our melee thrall early, because if we happen to hit like a 45 and then the thrall hit a 3, that would have been tragic. Alright, transitioning into the melee hand now. First of all, let's turn the hand, or the head. Not doing it, hold on. There we go, alright, I'm slow. Just goofing up. Turn the head, there we go. Now let's get to it. We do have the falling rocks on us though. First of all, let's check if we are going to be in cycle. It's just 4-1. There should be... Okay, I thought it may have been portals, but it's not. It's just the shield coming up. So unfortunately, we're just going to have to walk it out. Goofing here. Okay, we are in cycle. Good DPS too, because we actually managed to hit 2 hammers. In the max setup these days with the scythe, it's actually not so bad when you don't end up landing a hammer. But with the lance setup, man, does it make a clear and obvious difference. Alright, that is the melee hand complete. Finish off the major and into the head phase. We're going to summon the ranged thrall as well. And we're going to be doing the 4-1 method here. Hopefully we get some ruby procs. Hopefully. And in a timely fashion too, might I add. Not when it has a sliver of health left. So in the previous few runs, whenever we switch into the range gear here, we keep the Nate is Not face card on. That's because in that specific setup, the face card is actually a little bit better for our range DPS. However, in getting the Torva helm, that is no longer the case. You would want to wear the ancestral hat instead. And honestly, in terms of pure DPS, you'd probably want to make the effort of taking off the ancestral hat, but then I don't know, that's just extra effort and like less stats, right? Okay, we get a ruby. Doesn't really do 110. It did do 69, however. Nice. We got the poison trail on us. Another ruby. Kind of late though, unfortunately. Alright, we are closing in on completing the raid. Let's not goof now. Let's brew there. Make sure we don't chance. Keep an eye out on my stamina as well. I am being a little bit greedy now. I don't want to sip the dose as it barely has any health left. We don't need it. There we go. A 46-26. Pretty close to the master time. Let's see what our loot is. Some coal antique planks. Actually worth 1.1 mil. I believe a 46-26 is just a minute and a half or a minute and 26 seconds off from the master time for solo CMs. Let's take a look here in the combat achievements tab. If we scroll down, Chambers of Xerics CM solo speed chaser in less than 45 minutes. So we would have got that time in this setup if we simply didn't reset Vanguards and take 10 years in the Vanguard room specifically. And also, you know, if we just had a little bit of better RNG in general, you know, it just swings one way or the other sometimes. And that's the difference between the master time or not the master time.